Marcus Boykin,
Saul Agnon,
CJNG Mexican Gang,
Imam Hamadi Ismail Mazood,
Josh Holder,
Mike Tedesco,
Admiral Gerald Pilsner,
Leonard Howard,
J.D. Hartley,
Steve Horn,
Lorraine Hartley,
Ben Edwards.
Hey guys, I'm Chris, and that was The Terminal List.
The Terminal List. I'm Mike, and welcome to No Limits, the thriller podcast, and for the next month or so, the Terminal List podcast.
There it is. Coming to you live with all things Jack Carr, all things Terminal List. We're so excited for, one, this book, to talk about this book today. Two, this TV show. I can't wait. It's great that, I had never read this book until this past 3 days. And now I get to watch it in a show in a little over, a month. It's going to be awesome.
It was so great. You texting me all giddy. It felt like I was getting to relive the excitement when I first read this as it came out. It is just a trip. This might be the best book that we have reviewed on the Thriller podcast, hands down. And I might just say, one of my all-time favorite books, period.
It's up there. It is definitely up there. If you had to do a ranking, it's pretty high up there. All right, before we get into today's podcast, let me just give you guys a little bit of programming reminders. Last month, we covered all things Chris Howdy, and Mike recently interviewed David McCloskey. Great interview with that, Mike. I listened to that this morning. That was a really good interview.
Damascus Station, also a fantastic book. Definitely on a must-read list.
Yes, and also, we were on another podcast, the Protectors Podcast, so please check that out with our friend
Jason Piccolo. Thanks for having us. Appreciate you having us on.
Yes, Jason Piccolo. Go check him out. What a great guy. Yeah, anything else? We're just pounding out content here.
Yeah, let's just back up for anybody just finding No Limits. Let me tell you a little bit about the brand. This is our third season and our third podcast feed where we're branching out and covering all thrillers across the board. From Chris Howdy to Jack Carr to Mark Graney and others. Even some new releases. We're going to be covering them here as they come out. We've already covered the entire Vince Flynn series. 20 plus books, 100 plus episodes. All the Mitch Rapp books by Kyle Mills and Vince Flynn. We're even gearing up in September to cover Oath of Loyalty. We can't wait for the next Rapp book to come out. And our season 2 is the Brad Thor podcast. All the books by Scot Harvath. We're 3 books in. And man, I am looking forward to July, where we'll get to cover Rising Tiger. Yes. So, if you're new to No Limits, you've got 3 pods to subscribe to. If you're a Mitch Rapp fan, a Scot Harvath fan, and now, this month, Jack Carr and everything James Reece.
James Reece. We're covering this book, and one of the reasons we are covering this book is because the TV show is coming out, Mike.
Yes.
How hyped are you for this TV show?
Dude, I am pumped. And you guys are probably listening to this after we already dropped our first reaction video. Chris and I, once it drops, we're going to do a couple of minutes, our first reactions. You guys will get to hear everything we think about the trailer. So, based on all the content we've got so far, a couple of teasers, I am super hyped. And we have another episode where we interview 2 super fans. One of them, a high schooler, Abraham, who started the Terminal Vengeance YouTube channel, and he does breakdown videos taking all of this content and digging in, looking for connections, trying to uncover what the story is going to be about. And we also brought on Kevin. Kevin is a patron of the podcast, helps make it possible, and he's running some giveaways. So be sure to listen to our interview with Abraham and Kevin, 2 superfans, lots of giveaways. They're starting as soon as this week and continuing late into July. You have a chance to win copies of the book, movie posters, a gift card to Jack Carr's website to get yourself the Cross Tomahawks hat, or maybe some Black Rifle coffee. They're even giving away the Revenge Blend Black Rifle coffee in one of the giveaways. And Chris, this was surprising. You know what they picked up? A No Limits mug.
Oh, very nice.
One special listener will get a No Limits mug as part of the giveaway. So be sure to follow all those guys and listen to our interview with Abe and Kevin so you can know how to get involved and win some Jack Carr swag.
Yeah, and we're going to be coming at you with episodes covering the show in depth in the future, as well as Jack Carr's latest release, In the Blood.
Yeah. Come for Terminalist, stay for all the books. We'll be covering each one in the ensuing months after the show is out. And hopefully the show will get some of you non-Jack Carr readers to pick up Terminalist and all 5 books in the series. I wanted to start with a little something so the audience can play along. As we talk James Reece, I wanted to give you a little trivia quiz show. Chris, I've pulled these on you before. I'm not going to ask you to answer them. But how about you and the audience keep them on the back of your mind? And as we go, we'll explore some of these questions and see how many you got right.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so we're going to start off with an easy one. They're going to get progressively harder. Question number 1 for the Terminalist quiz show. What are the names of Reece's wife and daughter?
Ooh, I know that one.
Okay. Told you we're starting easy. Question 2. How does Reece take his coffee? Number 3. What is Reece's favorite condiment?
Trick question.
Oh, don't give it away. Question 4. Is Reece a morning person or a night owl? Question 5. What do we learn is one of Reece's favorite bands? And which song is he listening to? I told you, they're getting a little harder, huh?
Yes, they are.
Question 6. In what 2 cities does Reece kill with his Winkler Sayok tomahawk? A mainstay of the Jack Carr brand is the tomahawk. Which 2 cities does he get a kill in this book? And finally, in the really awesome scene in Mexico, taking out the gangbangers.
Awesome scene.
How many of the guys does Reece kill? Single-handedly, how many guys does he kill in that one scene in Mexico?
And he would have had them all. He didn't need help.
He got a little help at the end. So how many did he kill? And then there were a few friends. Got a couple as well. All right, so 7 questions. How are you feeling about them?
I think I got most of them.
Okay. All right. Audience, listen along as we go. Chris, I think it's time.
Yep, let's do it.
Let's jump into this book. And you know what I like to do on No Limits Podcast? I like to put my thoughts in the form of a limerick. There once was a seal named James Reece. The list he'll cross off, or no peace. Conspirators he will slay. Each one they will pay. Vengeance for wife and daughter never cease.
That's awesome. You actually had it written before we potted. This is great. One of your better ones.
I had that one prepared. Yeah, that one I got done 20 minutes ago, so that was bright and early.
A little peek into how the pod is made.
How about a throwback, though? Do you mind if I go back to the No Limits archives?
Yes, of course.
Find the limerick I read to Jack Carr?
Do it.
For anyone who doesn't know, we had Jack on our season 1 podcast. We talked all about Mitch Rapp and what Vince Flynn meant to him, and how he even carried a copy of Term Limits, the first Vince Flynn book, with him on his deployment. And it was an awesome conversation. So maybe we'll repost that, Chris, but you can definitely find it on season 1, the Mitch Rapp podcast. And at the end, a tradition we like to do is I write limericks for some of our guests and limericks about all of our books. And he was a little, how would you describe his reaction to hearing that I wrote poetry for him? Confused?
Confused, but great. He took it in stride. He enjoyed it in the end.
Perplexed?
It's all good. They appreciate it in the final end.
Yeah, here we go. A warrior, a husband, a father, a seal. James Reece or Jack Carr doth this reveal. A man on a mission, surpassing competition. To every type of reader, his books appeal.
Boom, baby. That was a good one.
Dude,
that was a really good one.
I like that one. All right, let's get into the real stuff, though. I give us the poems, and you give us the data. Give us the scores. How is this book holding up on Amazon and Goodreads?
It's got a pretty high score on both. It's got a 4.2 on Goodreads, 4.7 on Amazon. And a lot of good quotes for this one. So we got one from Chris Pratt, who is our in the flesh James Reece, who says, "Take my word for it, James Reece is one rowdy motherfucker. Get ready." We also have Brad Thor, our season 2 namesake. He says it's absolutely awesome. So powerful, so pulse pounding, so well written. Rarely do you read a debut novel this damn good. Lee Child of the Jack Reacher series says, seriously good. I mean, seriously. And finally, we have Kevin Maurer, co-author of No Easy Day. Told with a deft hand and a keen eye for detail, The Terminalist is explosive and riveting. Perfect for fans of Vince Flynn, Brad Thor, Stephen Hunter, and Nelson DeMille. Very true.
Oh, yeah. Those quotes are spot on.
A Navy SEAL. On his last command deployment, Lieutenant Commander James Reece's entire team was killed in a catastrophic ambush. But when those dearest to him are murdered on the day of his homecoming, Reece discovers that this was not an act of war by a foreign enemy, but a conspiracy that runs to the highest levels of government. Now with no family and free from the military command structure, Reece applies the lessons that he learned in over a decade of constant warfare towards avenging the deaths of his family and teammates. With breathless pacing and relentless suspense, Reece ruthlessly targets his enemies in the upper echelons of power without regard for the laws of combat or the rule of law. So we kicked off this pod by doing the Terminalist. How should we structure everything going forward? Should we just go down the list and like talk about each killing? Or
I feel like we kind of got to go kill by kill. That's definitely one way to do it. But since you just read the synopsis, I actually pulled a quote from the preface that I think, written by Jack Carr, summarizes this book way better than any of those kind of dust jacket previews can give you. I just listen to how perfect this is. He's coming out swinging right out of the gates. From the preface, I quote, "This is a novel of revenge. The Terminalist explores what could happen when an apex predator, a warrior at the top of his game, is thrown into a situation from which there is no return. It is about what could happen when societal norms, laws, regulations, morals, and ethics give way for and set a course of reckoning. A man who is, for all practical purposes, already dead." Dude, those 3 sentences are better than any attempt to try to describe what this book is about. He nailed it.
Yeah, and right from the bat, right, we are thrust into the action. First, we do this cold opening with the Marcus Boykin kill, who we have no idea what the hell is going on. We just know that this guy had to get got. And then, right after that, it's mentioned that, 10 days earlier, or a couple weeks earlier, we go to the combat scene where Reece loses most of his men. Just back to back, that opening is amazing.
Oh, great first few chapters, because you're trying to figure out, why is this guy taking the shot in Wyoming?
Yeah.
What did this Marcus Boykin character do? Get a short description of him as this fat cat banker. So you're kind of led to, not like his lifestyle.
Right.
But you're still wondering what could drive someone to take this shot. And then, boom, we see an operator lose his team. And, we're just getting such cool detail. And this is going to be a mainstay of what Jack does. The rifle is described, all the specs, and who handcrafted it. The Eccles family, Darcy to Eccles.
That's pretty cool.
in Utah is this master of craftsmanship and precision. And Reece got the gun as a gift from his father. He's using a Night Force NXS 2.5 to 10x 32 millimeter. I have no idea what the heck that means. But you gun gurus out there are probably losing your shit over it. Like, it's a 300 Winchester Magnum. Like, it means nothing to me, over my head. But you know what? For the people who love that, you know, like, you could tell Jack is speaking to a crowd, and that crowd is loving it. They're eating it all up.
Yeah, and I like the description. I think we get it later on of the cartridges that his dad precisely hand-packed, wrote out the details, and I'm imagining like this box of bullets, and like each one has its place. Yeah. You know, and then he even puts like the spent shells like back in right after they're shot. I don't know, just throughout the entire novel, Jack does a very good job of not like bogging us down with description of tactical stuff, but using it to elevate the story. Yes. And you can tell, obviously, he was an operator, so it's something that is important to him. And I feel like it feels a little bit different coming from the voice of someone who's actually used the weapons than like
right
others who do it well. I'm not saying that like Brad or Vince or Kyle don't do it justice, but it has a different weight. Like knowing the person who wrote this probably shot this exact gun. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. And he's such a gearhead. The authenticity is so strong. There's very few writers who can so authentically put themselves in the story. And what's cool is hearing Jack say, I'm not James Reece. James Reece is smarter than me, wittier than me, more creative than me, a better operator than me. But he says he captured the feeling. And I love that. Authenticity is just the word for it. No one can be more authentic in writing this character, the story, than him. Everything James Reece goes through, Jack has, in a sense, lived through or felt and can explain that experience from a first-person perspective. So it's just super creative that he created James Reece not to be himself, he says that, but he can recreate the feelings. And that also helps with the redactions, because he talks a lot about the review process, even in the preface. Yeah, saying how a lot of stuff got redacted. And if you heard Jack on podcasts, he's even done a lot of the appeals. There were layers and layers of you have to appeal every single detail that was shot down and redacted by the Pentagon or the Department of Defense or the CIA review board. And his strongest argument was everything, all the details, the tech specs, the mission parameters that I'm using, even the equipment that I'm describing, all of that is publicly available in government documents. Things that are on the web, published on a .gov website. And he said, if you can find it there, why do you censor it from my work? So this is a good argument there. That plus he's not giving away specific things that he's seen or done. He's recreating the feelings of what it was like to be in those shoes. And I think that puts him in the clear for telling a great story.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this because he mentions that at the very beginning, but I as with most things, I do audiobooks. And so there was only one time where there was a bleep in the audiobook. Have you actually read the terminal list? I mean, I was reading a little bit, but I didn't see many redactions.
So I think they changed this over time. I'd have to go back and compare different versions of it. I actually thought it was really cool when it first came out. It did have a lot of redactions, which in the text were blacked out. And in the audiobook said redacted. And it happened a lot. I really remember that. And some people were like, oh, it's just annoying. It breaks up the story. To me, it got me interested. But you're right. The version I listened to and the Kindle version I just read didn't have a lot of redactions. I don't remember Ray Porter ever stopping and saying redacted. But the first time I listened to it, I really think I recalled that. They might have changed it in subsequent releases. I really think so.
Okay. Yeah, but they obviously left that piece in the beginning.
Right.
So you were talking about James Reece. I guess we should just, from the get-go, what do you think of James Reece as a character?
Oh, dude. he's a legend. I mean,
how does he stack up to like a Mitch Rapp or a Scot Harvath or
the Gray Man?
The Gray Man.
Well, how are you asking? I think you got to break down that question, because in stature of being a literary figure for the thriller genre, I don't think he's there yet. You know, just 5 books in, one just released days ago. I can't really say he's at the level of a Mitch Rapp or Scot Harvath, or even Jack Reacher or someone, just in how they're mainstays of thrillers. I think he can become that, right? But there's a difference between 20 books,
right,
and 4 or 5. So in that regard, I think he's well on his way. He's going to be there. In terms of an operator, I think he's just very different. I think they have different skill sets. Maybe closest to a Gray Man or Scot Harvath actually having military training,
right?
You know, Scott being a SEAL. But again, how they're working and the missions they're on are so different.
Yeah.
I mean, the motivation and revenge and search for vengeance is not something we've seen from Scott. It's kind of something we saw from Mitch, but he's not a military man,
right?
So it's different. I don't think it's fair. Would you say it's fair to try to compare them?
No, it's not. It's an unfair question, but I had to ask it. But like a lot of this book sort of reminded me of the scenes after Anna is killed, right? When Mitch goes on the revenge tour. And you can even argue that it's similar to how, you know, Scott has to go on that revenge after, you know, when he's in Russia after Lara's killed and the old man is killed, right? But one of the things I really liked about the character, and Jack points this out, is that while James Reece is very good, very adept, he's not the best. Like, he always mentions that, you know, he got top 3 in the running the course, which is like still, you know, in terms of operators, that's amazing because you're dealing with the best of the best. But I liked how he sort of grounded him a little bit. He didn't try to, you know, it's easy to make these tropes of like, my character is going to be the best runner, the best shooter, the best fighter. But like, Jack doesn't overtly say that. He just sort of shows it with action how adept this character is and how efficient he can be. And then the family story, in terms of the death of his wife and daughter, I feel like that adds, you know, while we don't interact much with them besides like flashbacks or like memories that James has, that adds a new element to an operator like this, because we don't get a lot of these people are single, or they're going through, you know, they're not married, they're going through these relationships through the books. And so this was like a different feel coming right off the gate with someone who is married. You know, they immediately get killed, and now it sets up this perfect revenge plot. I don't know, I just felt like the combination created this ultimate character that I really vibed with, and I really like James Reece. Which is like, I don't know, this is going to be like the source of the pod going forward, but I don't know if I can see Chris Pratt as James Reece, but we'll see.
Yeah. A little. He's Star-Lord, right? He's a
funny
guy from
he's a comedian.
Parks and Rec. He's a goofball. Yeah, he's a soft, you know, kind of goofball. But then again, we saw him in Zero Dark 30 as an operator. He switched it on. When Star-Lord's got to kill, Star-Lord can kill. Jurassic Park, when he's got to be in the action, he's in the action. He can do everything, right? I agree with you. My first reaction was like, oh, not this rough and tumble guy I pictured, but damn, Chris Pratt's got the ability and the skill to pull it off. So I am not at all worried, but I'm with you that my first reaction.
We'll have that discussion when we see it. Though.
Yeah. I did hesitate, though, at first. I will agree with you there. I will. But to your point about James Reece not being perfect, not being a superhero, I think that makes him very compelling.
He's not Captain America, you know?
He's not Captain America, right. But I think it's compelling because it probably is reflective of the actual heroes that Jack looks up to and his own mentors.
Sure.
I'm sure, why the people, the guys he looks up to and the SEALs he's learned from, part of what he learned from them was probably that they had vulnerabilities. He probably learned from them the way they handled mistakes in the field, or when they made the wrong call or an op went south. He probably realized the true heroes are the ones who can deal with that and bring the unit together. And so he didn't want his character to be super problem solver, Rambo, go out and just murder everyone. He needed to have more nuance to the character, and it's probably based on what he really saw and the guys he saw and looked up to and learned from himself. And the family part of it, I think, adds to that narrative of, like Mitch Rapp or Scot Harvath. It's like, damn, these guys don't really have families, so we can't really hurt them. We can't get them.
Sure.
Well, James Reece gets got. He gets got.
Yeah.
So, I think it just all makes it real. It adds to this texture of who he is and who are the guys like him that go down range and do this and have to sacrifice time with their families. It allows that story to be told in a super hyper realistic way. All right, so we kind of covered the ambush because that's part one.
Right.
I like how the book is broken down into these 3 parts. Ambush is a great name for the opening, both the scene in Afghanistan and then the scene at his home in Coronado.
Right. One of the trivia questions you said earlier are his wife and daughter's names. I know his daughter is Lucy. His wife's name is
Lauren and Lucy. Dude, let's get into that scene because that's just as much as the ambush, which part 1 is called, as is the actual losing troop on the ground. I remember viscerally listening to this scene for the first time. It hit me hard, man. It hit me hard.
It was rough, especially the scene, like the chapters afterwards when he's driving up to it and he's describing another time when he came home and how it happened, and you're like, and you realize, oh wait, this is not this time. This, he's like, maybe this will happen again, or he's hoping that that'll happen again. And then when he gets there and he runs in and he gets tackled by the cops, like I'm like driving back from the beach last week listening to this, and I'm like starting to like, I don't know, like well up a little bit, get a little emotional. I'm like, wait, this is a book, like this is a fictional plot, like, but it was so sad for this dude. I got a little emotional, and I don't know, just the way that the writing of it was just great. And I like how they put these throughout the thing, these little memories of him with his daughter. Like the freaking terminal list is written in crayon on a drawing that she did. And the fact that, she was pregnant and she was saving that as a gift for him.
A surprise.
Yeah. And she takes out goes out fighting, like is able to wound one of the attackers, which he gets extreme revenge on later on at the Mexican compound. Yeah. What a gut wrenching scene.
Dude. Yeah, I was going for a run around our university, Catholic University, here in Northeast DC. And I could picture the part of the sidewalk. You know that road on the west side of campus behind the Basilica?
Yeah.
I stopped. I literally stopped and just sat on the steps. I listened to this and just sat down. I think I sat for like 5 minutes and wasn't even listening to the story. I was just like, there's no way.
It's intense. But the thing is that you kind of knew it was coming because he mentions it, that Boykin, who the guy he kills, like took down his daughter. So like, that the scene is coming, right? It's not like hiding. It's hiding there in plain sight.
Do you want to see this on screen?
Do I want to see this on screen? I don't think so.
Oof. How are they going to handle that?
I think it's going to be flashbacks or like...
Yeah.
He comes home and the police are there.
Yeah, well, that's what happens in the story, right? He sees the police tape and he's running across the lawn. He gets tackled. Just listen to this quote. This is the quote where I literally sat down and just... I felt I was emotional. Quote, Reece was suddenly overcome by the events of the past week. He'd lost the SEAL brothers he had sworn to lead, was kept from their funerals, scapegoated by a bureaucracy who helped seal their fates, lost another teammate to a supposed suicide, and now faced the possibility that the 2 people he loved most in the world were gone too. Lying on his side with his hands cuffed behind his back, he began to sob uncontrollably. The overwhelming emotions, combined with the effects of the pepper spray, turned the hardened warrior into a quivering mess. His body face down onto the seat of the patrol car. He had nothing left to give and nothing left to lose. Oh. Boozer, he lost his
Right.
friend. They did a fake suicide. He lost his teammate just days prior in Afghanistan. The doctor who diagnosed his tumor.
Not as his teammate, he lost his entire team. And that we didn't even talk about with that ambush scene where he goes to grab his helmet and he's like, wait, this is a little bit more heavy. And he realizes because it still has the head of the guy he was just talking to in it. And this guy is broken, beaten, just found out, we didn't even say that yet, just found out that he potentially has a tumor in his head that could be, obviously cancerous, and he could be terminal.
Terminal.
Yeah, exactly. Key terminalist.
Pun intended.
Then he comes back, Boozer's dead, now his wife and kids, and this is all immediately sends him into his action of something's not right. This is obviously, nothing's something's up here. Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, just the emotion that he goes through, real driver of revenge. And it allows for a lot of buy-in. It really sells the story here with these traumatic events.
100%. And this is where he starts planning. I mean, he says, I've got nothing left to live for, so my final job on this earth is to hunt down every single one of these fuckers who are responsible. And he knows it's going to have to be connected. To have HQ dictate the tactics of that mission from above, he felt strange about that even just going in. He questioned, how the heck did I play along and just allow my men to go into this? They didn't just give us the intel. He's like, we usually collected the intel, or if we got the intel, we then planned the op. They got everything. They were told the tactics they had to use, how they had to approach the house, and all of this was coming down from on high. And he's just like, this goes up the chain of command then, because I have no idea why the bureaucrats and the politicians are the ones dictating our tactics. And as a leader, that's got to be tough to swallow, that you walked into it, or you were forced to walk into it. But he knows it's connected. And then we know this banker got taken out, so we've got a lot of pieces here. And I think at this point, we've already had some scenes where we hear the Hartleys. So we've kind of met the Hartleys in a different narrative going on, interwoven between these chapters.
Yeah, and we've met Horn, obviously.
Yes.
And potentially even, not Boykin, but his Saul.
Tedesco.
And Tedesco.
And Saul.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we've met a couple of these players, and at one point I was like, they were saying all these names, Josh Holder, Mike Tedesco, J.D. Hartley, Lorraine Hartley, the Hartley, and I was getting a little confused, and then quickly it sort of comes all together. But when you're when Reece doesn't quite understand it, you're given the bigger picture and expected to put the pieces together. I was getting a little bit confused, but then it brought it back, and I have to say Reece goes through a pretty good job of, playing spy and being a good detective. Yes. I was pretty convincing that everything he does, he gets a little bit of help from a reporter, Katie Bernack, who, we're gonna see, played by Constance Wu, right, in the upcoming show. So
yes.
Excited to see her as a character.
Yeah, and you're right. He's really creative in how he's meeting with Katie. No cell phones.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't want to get tracked. He's seen high-value targets. The sole reason his guys were able to kill them and take them out abroad was because they carried cell phones and made mistakes, and our SIGINT got them. And so he's like, no cell phones, pay for everything in cash, keep your records, in these places, and how they communicate. They use, some app, some chat app that he knows is safe, and does it from burner phones, paid for in cash with certain amounts of minutes. So
buying gift cards in cash, that whole description of how to do that was wow, this is how you actually have to stay off the grid. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So Katie's on his team. What is his next step? He pretty much, how does he trace it initially to? Who's the guy that he tracks to Chili's? And then
that's Josh Holder.
You're right. The cabal of bad guys, they do get a little mixed up. On my second and third read, it was easier to sort out, but there's almost one too many cooks in the kitchen.
If that's the one nitpick I had, it's you didn't need Marcus Boykin. His death was pretty cool in the very beginning, but we literally don't like even we get a little blurb explaining like who he was during like Saul's interrogation. But like you didn't need Marcus Boykin, you didn't need Saul Agnon, like you didn't need Josh Holder. Like I mean, I guess he needs all these characters, but yeah, it was a little bit bogged down, if I had to say that.
I almost wonder if he made enough characters to check off the different ways he wanted to kill them. Like if Jack I want to kill somebody by this overdose and this cocktail I shoot into him. I want to use the Inca method of ripping out your intestines, tying them around a tree. Like he obviously had some crazy fucked up ways he wanted to kill people. I feel like the list got a little long, but it was awesome to see.
Yeah. And he's getting some help not only from Katie, but also from Ben Edwards.
Yes.
So this is a longtime friend of his who gives him shit. He's going to be played by Taylor Kitsch in the TV show. I don't know if you want to get into Ben now because, you know, he obviously plays an important role throughout the stories, but then the twist of the end is sort of his big play.
Yeah. Well, I guess how we lead to Ben is that Ben is kind of the techie guy, and Reece gets this hard drive by sneaking into, whose house was it? It wasn't Saul. It was Holder's, Josh Holder. Yeah. And I like that scene because it shows the prep. Reece, for days in his apartment, drew maps and sketches. He went undercover as if he was buying real estate in the same apartment. Right. Oh, can I film? And he was specifically filming the types of locks that they had. He practiced picking it for hours. He almost had the thing planned out with every detail, second by second, of what he had to do. To one, steal this hard drive, get it to Ben Edwards, and then he goes back for Holder later on. Yeah, that's a big reveal at the end. I don't know if I want to say it just yet.
Well, obviously, if you've read the novel, but we can get to that later. But yeah, so he's using this intelligence. He puts together the pieces, but it's not until he really has the interrogation with Saul that he finally understands the entire piece, right? That, you know, the Hartleys are this power couple in Washington, D.C. You know, we love it when you make politicians the bad guys, right? You have this couple, one's the SecDef, which is crazy. Like, all right, this SecDef they have a program where they radicalize Americans to then potentially use them. And like, she pulls one, this taxi driver in LA, where they go and shoot up, but tries to shoot up in Chinatown. That scene was crazy.
Yeah. I couldn't believe that. Radicalizing the guys out of prison. Like, our own government, I wouldn't put it past them, but that was insane. So that we can have an Islamic terrorist to blame it on.
Do you think that, that's the times when, like, most of these things I read and I'm like, oh, maybe, but, not really. But that, I'm like, no way. It can't be. Like, we can't be doing that. Oh. That's crazy. The Hartleys are at the heart of this, right? They're the ones teaming up with Horn, this ringleader, capital investment guy, to get this drug, which the drug story, like, kind of played like it worked, but, like, it wasn't, like, ultimately needed, I guess. I guess that's, like, what put them on the course, like, to cover it up. But I kind of, like, forgot about it, like, halfway through the novel, and then, like, they brought it back with, understanding, like, what they were trying to do. And she sort of plays on this later on with, like, I'm tasking all scientists to work on PT. We need to focus on the real wars against PTSD. And, it just full circle brings it back. I don't know. Not the loose ends, but like the different tie-ins that Jack is able to weave with some of the characters' quotes and sayings, like interplay with some of his ideologies that he puts through James Reece. I don't know. I really enjoyed how everything was sort of interwoven. What did you think, Mike?
Yeah, actually, I'm not going to say the PTSD and the drug research is this kind of side story that's easily forgotten about. It's the driving motivator. I think it's a huge plot point. No,
it is. It is. And I shouldn't say a side story, but just like there was so much action, like trying to chase down these guys. I forgot the reason he's chasing down these guys is because they are doing the Tuskegee syphilis experiments on these equivalent on these Navy SEALs. Yeah. That's what kickstarted this whole thing because the action was like so engaging. So.
Yeah, okay, I see you there. I just think it's a huge reveal and a brilliant plot twist when Reece is like, oh, they gave us some shots of vitamins or something, or we were going to be test subjects for some whatever. They thought it was like a placebo they were getting or something that's not really going to be that important. And they secretly got this drug.
Right. That was crazy.
And then the fact it's not just millions. We're talking billions of dollars if there's a PTSD pill, essentially, that can take care of that. The country, the healthcare system and the military would go bananas for it. And they're literally using DOD money. There's a line in the Pentagon's budget for PTSD research. And they said like 95% of that money is lining the pockets of the Hartleys and Steve Horn to make this drug and push this drug. Yet the complications are, in its current stages, tumors. So it's not quite a finished product. Man, I thought that was a brilliant twist. It actually is realistic. Thinking buy-in, you could 100% believe some nefarious characters on the Hill are trying to profit from pushing research that they know is dangerous and willing to use people in the military. And I will add this. We didn't talk Pilsner.
Oh, yeah.
Using the command structure of the military, where if you're someone who says no to the SecDef or you say no to the people in Washington, you're out that chair. You're stripped of your duties. So the fact that you have to, and Jack had talked about this, you have to say yes. You have to toe the party line. You have to read, whatever they want you to read to the press to keep your job or to advance up the career ladder at the Pentagon. And this Admiral Pilsner, actually, I will say, might be, I think, Jack's best mini villain or side villain of this whole story.
Yeah, he was the most
because of what he represents.
Yeah,
because of what he represents.
No, I agree with that. He's like the most. If you had to pick like the best explained or the best well thought out villain, definitely the Admiral is the one.
Yep.
And I think it has to do with the fact that he was the one who was supposed to be leading these men, and he turned on them and had them all killed, and even had not only that, but had all these Army Rangers also killed just in the cover up. Like the man had no spine. That's ultimately like the worst thing.
And when Reece punches him, dude. That scene stands out when Reece pops the guy in his office. Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, there's so many good scenes from this book. Do you want to get into some of the killings? Checking off this list. We still have to talk about the Mexican, like the gang scene, who get revenge on the killing of his wife. There's the imam scene where he freaking takes his head and puts it on a spike.
We've barely got into actually checking off the list and some of the really cool kills. So before we get into that, let's just do a quick pause and revisit the trivia show. We got number 1, Lauren and Lucy. Question 2, how does Reece take his coffee? All this time he's been drinking honey and cream.
Honey and cream.
And a touch
that
of
Black
cream.
Rifle coffee he mentions too.
Got to do the Black Rifle, exactly. Veteran owned. Our question 3, what is Reece's favorite condiment?
Trick question, he hates all condiments.
Trick question, he hates the mayo, hates the condiments. And why does he need the Black Rifle coffee? Question 4, Reece is not a morning person. Says very clearly. Reece was struggling with the morning when he woke up before seeing Katie Burnick. I don't know if it happened yet, but one of his favorite bands, at another point when he's in the car, AC/DC.
Oh, yeah. This was the one I couldn't remember. Yeah.
Yep. It was AC/DC.
Highway to Hell.
And it was Highway to Hell. Exactly. All right, but since we're getting into that part 2, which is called The List, when we start taking names. Question 6, in what 2 cities does Reece kill with his Winkler Sayoc tomahawk? The first one on page where he whips that out is in Mexico, Tijuana, Mexico, where he's going after the gangbangers who shot up his wife and daughter. And how many does he kill in that scene? Well, I guess the second city is the Imam, and that is in San Diego. So back home in Coronado. So we got San Diego and Tijuana, Mexico. Let's get into the last question. How many of the gangbangers does he kill? Find out next week with us on the Terminalist Podcast, Part 2, review of the book.
As always, we need to thank our patrons. our special operator Sherry F., our special agents Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. Find us at thrillerpod.com or at Thriller Podcast. And as always, slow is smooth and smooth is fast.